there's this new bill that's been mentioned, and I thought this was part of this different act called the Restrict Act, which I've seen YouTubers complain a lot about, which is much more, you get into the, we need to protest this, that kind of thing. This is not, this is something different, and it's interesting because I don't think, usually I'm part of the Don't Censor the Internet group. Maybe it's just because I'm elderly now, but I'm starting to change my opinions on things. But this is from, whenever there's a new act that's coming out, all of the usual websites jump on it and start writing weird articles. It's like The Verge and
Let me
Gadget,
copy your homework, bro. I promise I won't. I won't do it verbatim.
Gizmodo, like they all start doing dumb weird
Verge
stuff. Yeah. So speaking of The Verge, here we go. New bill would add mandatory age verification to social networks. The Protecting Kids on Social Media Act would require a sweeping reevaluation of how adults and children operate online.
Well, first of all, kids should not be operating in any sense of the case online to begin with, but please proceed.
Well, I mean, the limit... Okay, so a group of U.S. senators have revealed a bipartisan bill. That's interesting.
That's already bad news.
It's bad news that it's bipartisan?
Mm-hmm.
Would require social media platforms to verify users' ages, stop anyone under 13... would require social media platforms to verify users' ages, stop anyone under 13 years old of age from signing up, and set up special rules for minors over 13. It would also require the government to test out voluntary nationwide verification system that would use official records and IDs to check people's ages online. Yeah, but here's my position on all of this stuff. If because we've made fun of the UK for this stuff before. We're trying to do the infamous license act, right? And we made fun of it, and for good reason.
This is our social media license.
We are at a point with the internet where it has crossed over into becoming
the normies.
Well, actively harmful towards the fabric of our communities. And what I mean by that is there's kids on social media who should not be there and who are not equipped. It's sort of like, I always make this parallel towards the boomers and the older people that got online because their kids showed them Facebook, and then they got online because of Facebook, and then they saw weird news articles go by, and they weren't equipped with the faculties and a lot of normies don't have the faculties to differentiate between what is real and what isn't, and what is a joke and what isn't, and so.
Or we need to somehow keep in contact with grandma and grandpa, so we're gonna create them a profile so they can see Jody's dance recital.
Well, yeah, and then grandma starts sending out articles to everyone on her email list about how Obama is sending elderly people to death camps. Like
he is. See, I told you about that.
So that's what I mean, though, is that the internet has become too much of a part of life, that the way that it is currently operating is not necessarily the way it should operate. The reason I am being fascist about this is because I know that if this happens, my world doesn't change at all, because all of the dumb, weird shit that I like to do on the internet will not change for me. And if they're like, Brendan, you need to get a license to look at this, I'd be like, no, I don't. And then suddenly the VPNs come out. Suddenly everything else happens, and all of the stuff that I was told I can't do on the internet anymore, I can still do. I know that that's how it's going to be, because it always is. It's the same thing.
There's always a workaround in the back door.
With ChatGPT and all of that AI stuff, where they want to put regulations on that and control that. It's all open. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it's open source. A lot of it you can run on your own. There's already independent people doing it and speaking of the Cayman Islands, doing their own weird shit that you can, you know what I mean? Like, it's always, as you said, there's always a back door to this stuff. And then so I'm like, okay, I don't care about the kids should have to be 13 years old to use social media. Ban everyone under the age of 18 from being on the internet immediately. The quality of the internet goes up tenfold instantly. Yeah. So that's fine. That's fine with me.
I mean, the fact that they're putting this thing about how their stipulations about, anyone under 18 from signing, or I'm sorry, anybody from 13 under signing up, and if you're over 18, there needs to be some sort of special rules and stuff. And it's the reason for this stuff is that as silly as it sounds, it's a dead horse. There's a broken record. It's always parents need to be more proactive in terms of what their kids are doing on the internet. Don't just give them a damn smartphone just for the heck of it, because you know the kid. My kid knows how to. Zachary knows how to use my iPhone, and I know that I shouldn't be saying this while I'm talking about this whole parental thing and stuff like that. I know, but the fact that they just somehow know instinctively how to press the things. Also, a lot of these kids that are using tablets and smartphones, these things are such dumbed down, streamlined versions of accessing the internet where the app itself just takes you directly to it. It's not like you have to click on you have to download a program onto your computer. You have to open the program. You have to type in the URL or, figure out where it is and stuff like that. These things take you directly to the thing in many of these cases. And also at the same time, if it's social media, I also have to say that social media, in the case specifically right now, in the case of Facebook, has become so pervasive in every single aspect of other websites on the internet, where if you want to go somewhere and you want to create a profile on that web page because you're interested in it, like my anime list, and you go in there and say, hey, would you like to sign in with your Google account or your MySpace or your Facebook account? And it's like, why? I'm here. I just want to create it here. I shouldn't even be given the option to sign in with something else that's a completely third party and has nothing to do with my interest in manga and anime waifus.
Digital waifu.
Yeah, digital waifus. I'm like, this is unrelated, but it shows that
this is unrelated. Weren't you trying to buy like a motherboard or something? What were you looking at? You were looking at some website. A cooler, Thermaltake or something. You wanted to log into the Thermaltake.
I bought
website.
That one too. Anyways.
Oh, okay, well that's good. So to me, the writing is on the wall, really, that anonymity online has an expiration date. The thing is, to me, the true internet, the real unfiltered raw internet of Web 1.0 has been dead since 2008 at the latest. And so what I liked about the internet,
Facebook.
What I liked about the internet doesn't matter anymore. Like you were saying, it's too easily accessible. Picture the days of having to run command lines to play a game in DOS.
DOS.
That the barrier of entry for, of course, normies didn't want to do that stuff. Of course, they were just like, I'm gonna go play my console game. It created its. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a very, like, going back to, like, the fandoms and the gatekeeping, the internet at one point, and just general geek, nerd, computer culture was its own self-contained hobby and group. And if you want to join into that, you had to learn how to operate that stuff and what it took for you to be able to enjoy it. And doing the command lines and doing, the IRC and everything else involved with it, was only for that group. And then eventually when you started getting more people in and they were trying to be like, oh, let's get more people in and streamline this and stuff. That's kind of how, because there's this great comic about how I think it was like a card game or something gets ruined by all these people joining in, and then the people who were originally part of it just kind of go away because it's not what it used to be, and then all the people who joined in afterwards are just like, let's move on to the next thing.
One thing that I've heard often is that the internet should be treated like a public utility.
Like water and electricity.
And that everyone's entitled to it. And at this point in the world, okay, yeah, sure, of course. Most in the developed world, the internet is basically essential. Totally agree. Here's the problem with that. I can't get my Comcast bill without handing over my identification. I can't sign up for electricity without my social security number.
Yeah.
It's like, if this is where we're at, then is it really surprising that it's going to become an actual public utility, and you're going to have to be identifiable, and that, you know what I mean? And the truth is, aside from your behavior, like on internet boards, Alex. I mean, your ISP already knows everything you're doing anyway.
Right.
So it's not that big of a leap. The problem is we're making, and let me be perfectly clear. I don't like this.
No, I don't either at all whatsoever.
I don't like this, but if this is where we're going anyway, then at least do something good with it and make kids stay off the internet and enforce them not making themselves into spectacles on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all of the other stuff where like underage people, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds can get on there and just, it also psychologically is bad for them because it is the missing out, feeling left out. I'm not as good as these people are. Like that's
they have Transformers. I got a GoBot. Yeah.
Well, it's like, oh, look what they're doing on their vacation. It instills jealousy and
envy.
Envy. Yeah,
it creates this classicism type of thing.
So it's like I strongly believe that the internet has become a negative to Western civilization or to the world. And if the governments if country governments actively sabotage the attractiveness of the internet, we may be able to come out of it where suddenly everyone's like, well, I don't really want the internet anymore. I don't want to hand over.
And if it gets as bad as it is and it just becomes this government oversight thing, then, it'll give me a better reason to, start getting away from it and doing, what life was like before the internet. Along with that point, while there's concern about kids getting on their internet, I think another factor of this is that I think that we're pushing familiarity and learning, utilizing electronics and the internet on kids a little too early compared to how we were. And I know it's me just sounding like a boomer again, but when they're already introducing like Chromebooks into kindergartens and first grades, that's also kind of contributing to this because it's kind of teaching the kids to use this device that, while it could be, completely cut off from the internet to some extent, they'll eventually be able to know that, oh, this thing could be able to get access to the internet and such like that, compared to us, which we had, hooked on phonics workbooks so we could learn how to say certain words and stuff.
Yeah, it's because it does say the bill doesn't require any specific age verification method and shouldn't be construed to require users to provide government-issued identification for age verification. But in the most unusual provision, it would require Secretary of Commerce to test a program doing just that. No later than 2 years after the bill goes into effect, the Secretary of Commerce would need to make a pilot program that would let people obtain a secure digital identification credential by uploading copies of IDs, blah, 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 blah.
And this is another thing where I've noticed that I've heard that a lot of job applicants, when they go and apply for jobs and the company that they're trying to get a position with, will then go and employ a third party to do a background check on them. And many of these background check companies will search your internet history or your personality.
How are they doing that?
No, they have their own methods, probably something that they probably.
Well, I mean,
have
maybe they can find your public behavior.
Well, that's what they're basically. Okay. Basically, anything you've done on the internet, your
searches
over X. I don't know from what. Like, we'll search your history, like interactive. You know what I'm talking about,
now.
Like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So many of these companies, they'll then also come back to the employer and be like, hey, we couldn't find anything about this person on the internet. And that has actually caused a red flag for many people who have been trying to get jobs, where it's like, they'll be like, yeah, we didn't, like, we're like, yeah, it's kind of weird you don't have any type of
social media
accounts. And they're like, yeah, because I don't want to do that, because I don't want to put, like, it's gotten to the point where the normies think it's weird that you don't have a social media account.
Yeah, I've heard that. I mean, I have Twitter and we do this stuff, but like,
I don't have a LinkedIn. I have no interest in doing a LinkedIn. LinkedIn has become the new, I guess, Facebook for like normies or
It's
something
for elderly.
that don't want to do
people.
Facebook.
It's for old people.
Oh, it's not just for, it's for people in their 20s even.
Yeah. I made a LinkedIn account when we went into COVID lockdown because I was wondering if I needed to get a new job. I made it so March of 2020, and I haven't looked at it since.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, at a certain point when you get older, I think you realize that some things are just inevitable. And so no amount of complaining is going to change it. And it just feels like the age verification. Age verification is coming one way or another. And like I said, while everyone's complaining and sad about that, and in the meantime, I will be sitting on the Onion sites and on Tor, and I will have left the mainstream internet and gone back to dial-up speeds to read my Wikipedia articles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, and I'll be happier because of it. I will have slow internet, and I'll be happy.
I honestly feel like the less at a certain point now, it's like the less time you're spending on the internet doing non-internet stuff, it's going to be more fun. You could take up hobbies like model building. You can make little ships and bottles.
I don't think I have the dexterity for that. Ships and bottles, great fun.
Ships and bottles, it's great fun.
Yes. You could build like cars or airplanes. Go. Psh.
I think this is Alex wants me to do his hobbies.
You can if you want to. I still haven't even touched that Wing Zero Gundam.
It's because you replaced hobbies with children.
Yeah, raising my kids properly is my new hobby.
Speaking of hobbies,
yes,
there's this article that you wanted to talk about in The Guardian.
Yeah. So what? Yeah, I know this is this is tinfoil hat Alex.
Look at
time.
this cow's like I want to. This cow's like I want to know who's behind the string of grizzly cow deaths in Texas too.
Yeah. So in recent months, there's been several cases of cattle mutilations in Texas and parts of Utah and such like that. And very similar to previous cases that occurred back in the 90s, 80s, and 70s and such like that, is that the killings are done in a very odd, methodical way in which certain types of organs are removed from the cattle, blood is drained from the cattle, certain types of cuts and incisions are done in the cattle in a very specific surgical manner. And all of this is done without anybody being privy to it in the middle of the night. And whenever they go and investigate the actual scene where the eviscerated cattle is found the following morning, there's no signs of any type of intrusion to or from the site. There's no tire tracks, there's no foot tracks. They don't really find any type of fingerprints or anything like that. They can't find, if the organs had been removed and then left in an area nearby or anything. It basically just goes up in thin air. And I know it's kind of a funny thing,
It's hilarious
about us talking this. But what's funny about this is that this has happened to many different individuals and their cattle. And whenever they try to talk to, the authorities, basically anybody beyond the level of their local sheriff or the sheriff's departments, like, we don't know what the heck's going on. We have no idea. None of this stuff makes sense. We're laying out the facts saying this is done in a very pseudo-ritualistic manner. They all seem to be consecutive. Not consecutive, but follow the same specific methods of previous consistency. Yes, thank you. Of previous cases, and then when you get to legislative and politicians are like, many times they'll just be like, "Oh, it's just a bunch of coyotes or wolves or mountain lions," and you're like, none of these animals have any knowledge of animal internal organs. They don't know how to operate. They don't know how to use, a scalpel. If it's an animal, why isn't there just blood strewn all over the place? Why are there no signs of animal tracks and stuff? And I find it to be very funny how a lot of these authorities higher up than, local county level tend to just kind of dismiss it without actually being like, let's maybe investigate this a little bit further and put more effort into it, because we've had incidents like this many times over a number of decades now, and people would like to have an explanation as to what is this mystical Jedi coyote that's able to Swiss cheese, this Angus cattle, and have nobody go ahead and
so are you
find them.
Do you have a theory on what is doing this, and is it fit for broadcast?
Well, we might have to upload this on like BitChute or Odyssey or something.
All right. Anyway,
no. I'm just joking. No, I'm thinking. Okay, there's always been talk about like the aliens and stuff like that, and it's like, I don't know about the aliens and all that stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if it's somebody possibly that has some sort of knowledge with livestock anatomy, some sort of animal husbandry knowledge, surgical knowledge, like things like that. But the reason behind them doing this, I'm not really certain why they would do this. It's also very odd that individuals that are doing this in the middle of the night are able to do this without, depending upon where their herd is at the time at night, it could be like several miles away from, the homestead of where the actual ranchers reside, that this is occurring on their land. When you have cases where they're removing the sexual reproductive organs of a female cow, and then they cut off like the tongue, or they've removed, the lower jaw of, another cow without leaving any evidence and stuff. It's very odd why they're doing this, and there's got to be some explanation as to why they would do it. But, I feel like it would be something where a lot of these guys nowadays would be able to set up, motion detecting cameras and stuff in areas on their property where the cattle might be, to be able to catch something like this. It's just kind of weird. It's I don't know. I mean, like I wouldn't put it past, maybe it's some weird cult or something like that, but I can't Scientologist. I'm not going to just be dismissive of it and just say, oh, it's a pack of wolves or something. I'm like, wolves do not do so. Like, we've all watched National Geographic. We've seen what it looks like when a bunch of wolves in Yellowstone take out, a bison. It's not a pretty sight, and come on, people. It's like, you just don't want to do anything with this because it sounds cockamamie.
They're afraid of finding the truth because the truth might be more disturbing.
Exactly. But there have been, like I said, there's been cases of this going back years and years and years, and they all seem to follow the same exact process. And if it's some organization that's doing it, they're very good at it. Are you on X right now? Yeah. I go on X sometimes, and I'm like, I get creeped out sometimes. Are they talking about the Mothman?
You're
That's
adorable,
cool.
Alex. No,
Thank you.
I just like this. I keep seeing these small insects in my room. Meaning?
It's a moth, dude. Get some mothballs.
It means you have drain flies, dude. See, all of the inflammatory boards get all the attention on 4chan, and then in normal 4chan, it's stuff like this.
Yeah.
I keep seeing these insects. What does it mean? You have drain flies, dude.
Yeah. But yeah, it's something that like you guys just need to when something like this occurs, you need to like get some FBI people, well, I don't know FBI people, but you get some like decent forensic people and try to like figure something out, because I stand with the ranchers and want to have an explanation.
I have to say that I have no idea what would be causing and even provoking the need to massacre cows like this. It does seem to be too particular for an animal to have done it.
Yeah.
I always, in these situations, since it happens all over the place, I kind of go to sort of like crop circles where it's not a deliberate group of people doing it, faking it. It's more like people hear about it and they're like, "Come on, Cletus, we're gonna go murder some cows."
Yeah.
But who knows? I don't
Yeah.
don't know.
But Cletus is apparently very good with a scalpel.
He might be a butcher.
And he might be, but, I mean, shit, blood gets all over the place when you hit an artery and stuff like that. Or even if you're removing the lower jawbone, you're still going to have to saw through, like, tendons and stuff. It's just, and I think in the article they even, like I mentioned, that they removed, like, the sexual reproductive organs of a cow. And just, like...
Hot.
Like, what are you going to do with them? I mean... But, there's
Alex,
stuff
you
that's
have
going to be
seen
left around.
people do way worse for way less glory than
I've watched
that.
a lot of those ISIS videos.
I'm talking about like adult videos and people doing
much
more degrading, much more stranger things for less notoriety.
You and I in each other's company have seen those videos.
Anyway, I think you said that in a really creepy way. We have seen it together. And anyway, I cannot. This is a compelling mystery for the ages, Alex. What happened to the cows? But okay, so you're still saying though, you cited a cult. Still people that have to do these things.
Yeah.
Okay, but then aren't you worried about the blood too in that situation? How come Cletus has to worry about cleaning up the blood, but the cult doesn't?
Well, I'm just saying it could be either a cult or it could be Cletus in the cult. Or maybe Cletus has left the cult to start his own cult.
Occam's razor, buddy.
Yeah.
We talked about tipping not that long ago, but that was like restaurant tipping. You were kind of irritated by them putting suggested percentages in doing the math for you.
Yes, I'm an adult and I can do it myself.
Well, something else has come up recently as someone who kind of takes pride in being a fairly generous tipper, something came up the other day that caught my eye and gave me pause.
Oh, what would that be?
Customers are being asked to tip even at the self-checkout. Some say it's emotional blackmail. That's a little wussy. Emotional blackmail is a bit dramatic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This guy looks like he would say that. He looks like he would call it emotional blackmail.
Absolutely. Is he scanning his bottle of Soylent?
It's artisanal bread.
Oh God, just as bad. Get yourself a loaf of Wonder Bread, son.
Self-checkout machines at cafes, sports stadiums, and airports are asking for tips, and customers aren't happy about giving extra money to machines. Okay, this is interesting because right off the bat, this is misleading. This is implying this is the dumb clickbait bullshit, which is implying that self-checkout at a supermarket is asking for tips. It is not.
The machine needs to be paid.
Yeah, right. Do you know how much money it takes to do the upkeep for those self-checkout machines? The Wall Street Journal reported on the rise of digital self-checkout kiosks and how customers have responded to tip prompts. Many customers who were asked to tip workers with whom they had no interaction were frustrated with these prompts, per the journal. The report spoke to half a dozen customers around the U.S.,
Half a dozen?
Oh, it's only 6.
6 people out of what?
Is this
365 million?
This is the kind of journalistic integrity.
I mean, I understand you guys have been doing some job cuts in, media, but
I can't. Well,
unless that's a typo.
I say I can't read.
Maybe 6 dozen.
I can't read. I can't read the article from the Wall Street Journal
because it wants you to pay a tip. But they have the option. I'm guessing they have the option just to say no tip. Yeah. But the fact that it's even being demanded is just kind of ludicrous.
At self-checkout, I would have no hesitation of hitting the no tip button. What difference? I mean, it's totally justified, and there's no pressure.
Right, and also to top it off with the self checkout, you're like, okay, you want me to tip, but who am I really tipping? Like, is it the person that's working at like the employee kiosk there that has to go over then like put in the code so you can buy your bottle of booze and stuff because it needs an age verification, or is this just like going to be pooled together in like a pot for everybody to share in?
One customer who took a beer from a self-service beer fridge at San Diego's Petco Park was asked to include a tip on his order, the Journal reported. I was confused because it wasn't entirely clear who I was tipping, he told the Journal, adding that he still tipped 20% anyway. Spokesperson for the stadium, which is the home of the San Diego Padres, told the Journal that all tips went to employees.
Okay, so they, I guess, pool it together then, in that case.
10 to 20% tip on a $6 bottle of water at the Newark Liberty International Airport. Okay, so you get the point. Very, very strange precedent to set.
Right.
I do think that there's been a lot of discussion showing up about how everything has a tip wrapped around it now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was one thing when you had like the little $1 tip jar that you would, when people paid with cash, you throw your change in there, and then that was it. It was like maybe 45 cents. Now they'd spin that thing around like in this little
20%.
Well, they spit like, so yeah, it'll be like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or it'll be percentages, like the numbers are all dictated by the restaurants or the cafe. So it is like, wait a second, what is happening here? Why are things that were never tip-oriented jobs suddenly are now
tip-oriented jobs?
Yeah, but these people, like Starbucks people, are getting paid regular, at least minimum wage. Probably almost certainly more. It's not like
depending upon certain city ordinances.
It's not like waiters who are getting paid like $3 an hour, and then the majority of their salary comes from, or their wages comes from tipping.
The tips.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're getting paid $15 an hour at Starbucks, what is the justification for me to give them $2 for doing their job?
Yeah,
they're already getting paid the standard.
Yeah. It almost makes it seem like the customers going to eventually start bearing the brunt of the actual wage payment to the person.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Starbucks doesn't say no to that and say employees can't do this anymore, because it is like an off-putting thing. But self-checkout, get out of here. There's no way.
Yeah, if I'm not actually directly interacting with a human being during this entire process, which, like you've told me, like that's all it's like in Chicago. It's just self-checkout, and it's just overseen by some random faceless employee at a kiosk that basically has to just make sure, everything's scanning properly and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm doing all the work. I'm doing the scanning. I'm doing the weighing on the machine in my cantaloupe. I'm doing my own bagging and all that stuff. It's like, well, what exactly is this tip all about?
Luckily, at this point, the supermarkets are not the ones that are doing the tipping. It's these weird self-checkout, like going to, well, this was at a sports arena and then at a airport that they had this, but it doesn't matter. The fact is that if you're doing your own bagging and selecting, and there's nothing, you're not tip. There's no one to tip.
If you're doing the job of the employee at this point, then shouldn't you be tipping yourself? It just creates like, why am I even being requested?
Here's a question, and listeners or viewers, contact at culturedoom.com if you have thoughts on this. Do you tip when you go pick up a pizza? Not delivery, when you go get it yourself.
I think that's an interesting thing. I noticed it was something that very much so came up during COVID, when everything was like curbside delivery. I remember that. That's my first train this evening.
Yeah, hold on for this train to go by. Do you tip for a pizza when you go pick it up yourself? I mean, you've picked up pizza in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
2 days ago, actually.
So,
there was no option at that time to do it.
oh, well, so did you pay by card? Did you
Yeah.
when you picked it up?
Mm-hmm. This was at a Casey's.
I assumed
also.
it was at Casey's.
Yeah, it's a Casey's. I don't know. Maybe if it was at like a Papa John's or Domino's or something, there might be an option for that.
Yeah.
But then if that was the case, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be a jerk and not give a tip, but I'm also going to not put the higher tip. So I'm just going to be the lowest tip. So at least I gave a tip. And if they complain about that, that's too bad.
So when I see that, because I've seen this forever, is that when you go pick up the pizza, when you pay with the card, it still has the tip line. Mm-hmm. And so depending on multiple factors, I'll either do it. I mean, it really comes down to my mood, I guess, and how I feel about the experience.
The person bringing me the food, sliding it over the counter.
Because sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna do a 20% tip on the pizza. They didn't even do anything, but it's Memorial Day weekend. I'm feeling like
they're swamped. They could use a little bit of
just a little kindness. Sometimes I'm like, no way. I just put a line through that, and then I'm like done. And then other times it'll be, well, if I can give $1 to a Starbucks employee, I'll put $1 down for the tip, just because.
Yeah,
But really, I don't feel like I need to.
So, we got Mother's Day coming up this weekend, right? Mm-hmm. All of us good boys, we know we need to do something. So this past week, I went and got Erica a gift card for a nail salon that she and her friend Megan go to. And when they rang me up for the amount, it was on my card, and there's a line that says tip. And I was like...
For the gift card?
Yeah, but because I think the system itself just automatically does. It's just set in place. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just struck a line through it because I'm like, who am I going to tip? Like, it's...
Yeah.
Okay, it's a nail salon, so it's obviously the person ringing me up is the one lady here that speaks English the best. You know, I'm not having a process done on my fingers or anything, so I'm like, you're just swiping my card. It's like, and then I'm like, okay, here you go. It's like, because otherwise it's like, what exactly, you know, I'm not having anybody do anything, you know, it's just, but it's,
so you put the line through and just called it a day. Yeah. There is a whole thing now that the phrase is tipping fatigue. I have heard it over in multiple websites and publications, and I think that we have, especially now that COVID is pretty much resolved, hopefully, the masses are losing patience for it. Because it's much more, these kind of articles about people getting tired of tipping are getting much more prevalent and often. And so I feel like there is starting to be this concerted effort to, it's just your delivery.
We're not doing it anymore.
It's your delivery driver, and and your waiter at a restaurant that you sat and ate.
Or your Uber driver.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and outside of that, no. No. And then the traditional bellboy, you know, like the old school.
Yeah. Your valet guy, I guess.
My valet.
If you do valet, you know, I don't even know how many places still do valet or who does valet. Like, it would be funny if you pulled up in like a 2000.
You can do valet anywhere. They still.
If you pulled up in if you pulled up in like your 2002 Dodge Neon and you had it valeted.
Right.
It's like.
Take care of it.
Yeah.
But anyhow,